one of the NFL's top cornerbacks, is just released, and it's causing quite a stir. Jaire Alexander, a player that many consider one of the best at his position, was cut by the Green Bay Packers. Now, with the Las Vegas Raiders secondary being a bit of an unknown, it begs the question, should they consider going after Alexander? Especially when you look at the current state of the Raiders' defensive backfield, this could be a move that makes a lot of sense. According to Ian Rappaport, the Packers made an attempt to trade Alexander before releasing him, but they had little success. And why would they? If you're trying to trade a player who's openly said he doesn't want to be part of the team, that's going to be a tough sell. Plus, Alexander is no longer on a rookie contract. He's been in the league for 6 to 7 seasons, which means his value and his salary are a bit higher. Still, even with that, Alexander remains one of the top 5 cornerbacks in the league, and some even argue that he's the absolute best. Now, let's take a look at what the Raiders have at cornerback. Darien Porter, a third-round pick, is expected to be one of the starters heading into the 2025 season. Alongside him, Eric Stokes, who played with Alexander in Green Bay, could also start. But here's the thing. Alexander is better than both of them, hands down. Sure, Porter has potential, but there's still a lot of uncertainty around him. We don't know if he's going to turn into a star, but what we do know is that Jaire Alexander already is one. He's proven himself on the field time and time again. What's even more impressive about Alexander is his versatility. He's not a scheme-specific player like Richard Sherman was during his time in Seattle. Sherman was known for thriving in Seattle's Cover 3 system, but when he was asked to play in a more man-to-man heavy scheme, he didn't have the same success. Alexander, on the other hand, can play in any system. Whether it's man-to-man, zone, or a hybrid scheme, Alexander excels. He's a great tackler as well, and his ability to adjust to different defensive schemes makes him incredibly valuable. If you're the Raiders, this is a guy you have to seriously consider. Looking at the Raiders' depth chart right now, you have to wonder if they can rely on guys like Porter and Stokes to step up. I mean, Stokes has been a part of the Packers' defense for the past few seasons, but he hasn't been playing as much lately. So, if you're trying to win now, do you want to gamble with unproven players? Or do you bring in a guy like Alexander, who has already proven he can be elite in this league? And let's be honest, while the Raiders have a lot of unknowns at cornerback, they also have some young guys in the mix, like Jacorian Bennett and Darnay Holmes. But let's take a step back here. Bennett, who is in his 3rd year, has shown some flashes. But can he adjust to this new system? Will he break out and show the potential that people expect from him? It's still a huge question mark. Holmes has been getting some first-team reps, but is that because he's good, or is it because the Raiders simply don't have better options? It's a bit of a gamble, and that's why someone like Alexander could be a huge difference maker. Now, here's the thing. With Alexander being released, the Raiders don't have to give up draft picks to get him. There's no trade involved. He's available for free. You just need to take on his contract and boom, you've got a top 5 corner on your roster. So the question is, why wouldn't the Raiders at least consider this? Sure, there are concerns about his injury history. Some would argue that's why the Raiders have steered clear of other injury-prone players in the past, like Nate Hobbs. But still, the upside of bringing in a player like Alexander, especially when you're not having to give up draft picks, could be worth the risk. But it's not just Alexander who's available. There's also Jalen Ramsey, who's currently with the Miami Dolphins. While it's unlikely the Raiders can land both Alexander and Ramsey, just imagine for a second what it would be like if they could. That could be a game changer for the Raiders' defense. Yes, Ramsey would come with a trade cost, likely a 3rd-round pick, but adding both of these guys could drastically improve the Raiders' secondary. You have the salary cap space to make it work, so why not go for it? But it's not just about corners. The Raiders need to figure out their linebacker situation as well. You've got veterans like Devin White and Elandon Roberts, but let's be real. White is no longer the explosive player he was when he first entered the league. Sure, he's only 27, but when you've been in the league as long as he has, wear and tear starts to show. He's just not the same player he was when he first came in. As for Elandon Roberts, he's solid, but he's also getting up there in age. The Raiders need to figure out if these guys can still contribute at a high level, or if it's time to bring in some younger, more dynamic players. There's also Germaine Pratt, who just hit the open market. Pratt was a top 10 linebacker last season and could still be a solid addition to the Raiders. The question is, do the Raiders want to keep adding older players to their defense, or do they want to focus on developing younger talent? Speaking of younger talent, the Raiders have some promising players in the linebacker room, like Cody Lindenberg and Tommy Eichenberg. The hope is that these guys develop into key contributors in the future. However, Eichenberg didn't show much last season, which leaves room for players like Amari Gaynor to step up and potentially take that next step. Gaynor has been impressive, and maybe he's the one who turns into the next great linebacker for the Raiders. The Raiders are also trying to be smart with their salary cap, saving money for future contracts. Christian Wilkins and Colton Miller are all guys who are going to need new deals soon. The Raiders have cap space, but they also have to plan ahead for these future investments. That's why they might hesitate to make big moves like signing Alexander and Ramsey, but the reality is that these are players who could help them win now. So it's a balancing act. If the Raiders were to go after Alexander and Ramsey, they'd immediately make their defense one of the best in the league. The salary cap might limit what they can do, but the cap space is there, and they could work out contracts that make sense for both the team and the players. Finally, let's talk about Jackson Powers Johnson. He's been a standout player for the Raiders, but some of the recent Pro Football Focus rankings have him ranked as just the 17th best center in the league. Honestly, I think that's disrespectful. Powers Johnson is a special talent, and I believe he's on the path to becoming one of the top centers in the NFL. The PFF rankings might have him low, but I'm telling you, he's better than that. If you ask me, Powers Johnson is a top 5 center in the making. So there's a lot to consider for the Raiders heading into the 2025 season. They need to make sure they're adding the right pieces to their defense, whether that's Alexander, Ramsey, or even a veteran linebacker like Pratt. There's no question that they need to make upgrades, and the cap space is there. Now, it's about making the right moves and balancing the future with the present. And just to wrap up, there's a quick update on Damon Arnette. The former Raiders cornerback is working out with the Houston Texans in hopes of getting back into the NFL. Arnette's career took a rough turn due to off-field issues, but he's been putting in the work in the UFFL. He's had a solid season so far with 18 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, a pick 6, and 5 pass breakups. I'm not sure if he'll get another shot in the NFL, but I hope he does. He was immature when he was with the Raiders, but it seems like he's trying to turn his life around now. I wish him the best. So, what do you guys think? Should the Raiders make a move for Alexander, Ramsey, or any other free agents? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.